I am here today with Natalie Linn, and I've only known you for what, 30 years
Correct.
or more? Could
Just,
be more.
well, let's see. I was about 10 when I met you.
I was the newbie on the block when I met you too, right? You were already.
Oh, you were.
Yeah,
You were.
right. It was like you said, "Who is this young guy that thinks he can?"
He was always cute.
Yeah, yeah. That tells you how long ago, because cuteness has left me many, many years ago.
No.
So Natalie lives in Portland, Oregon, and is one of the premier, if not the premier, basket experts in Native American basketry. She's written lots of books, exhibitions. We're going to talk about those kind of things and how the heck she got to be such an expert in the field. And I've used her, I will tell you, on more than one occasion to say, what is this? I'm not exactly sure. And she will be able to help me invariably almost every time, if not every time. So tell me, where did you grow up, Natalie?
Well, I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and went to school in California. And
where did you go to school? Just
Berkeley.
Berkeley. Huh?
And then I taught school down in Los Angeles.
So when you grew up, so you grew up in Portland, and what was that like growing up? And like, when you were growing up as a kid, did you collect any art? Were you into basketry? Were you into any of that kind of stuff? Not as a child.
Totally foreign.
Yeah.
Totally
What
foreign.
were you into as a child?
I really can't tell you. I was into reading. I was a big reader.
So you like to read.
I did like to read, and I was into dating, and then I met my ex-husband, and we got married.
Young, it sounds like, maybe.
And had some children, and then
And what did your...
I bought a basket because I couldn't stand the house I was living in.
Yeah, and so when was that you bought it?
Oh my gosh, about 45 years ago.
Do you remember, how old were you when you bought that first basket?
I was about 30 years old.
Okay, so at 30 is when it kind of bit you that you would be into basketry.
Well, when I was teaching 4th and 5th grade in Los Angeles, the history or social studies unit was Native Americans, California Indians. And so I learned that they were basket makers, and then when my ex and I bought this home, which I couldn't stand, it was very cold, I thought, a basket might be a good idea, and I found one at an antique place for $5.
And what was it?
I bought it, and I was so proud of myself. I thought I'd gotten such a good deal. I found out later from an expert that I had bought something that was Raffi and was not Native American at all.
I love that.
I swore I would never be taken again. I took back the $5 basket and demanded my $5 back, which I got.
You got it back?
I got, yeah. He resold it.
So what did your mom and dad do?
My father was a pharmacist, and my mother helped him.
In the pharmacy?
Yes.
So you saw business. He had
he was a big businessman.
And he had kind of his own private business?
Oh, yes, and he was very big in the stock market, and he had a big business.
And did that help you at all, you think, in your business as you grew older and developed
People
a
always
business?
said I had a business mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. I've always associated that with you.
Yes.
Yeah, you understand costs and all the things that go on with it.
Oh, yes.
And so when you graduated from high school in Portland, right?
Yes.
Where did you go there? You went to college, right?
I went to I went to high school in Portland, and then I applied to a couple of different schools to get away from mom and dad, and I applied to Berkeley, which I never thought I was going to get in, but I did.
And you did 4 years there?
Did 4 years there, and then...
What was your training in Berkeley? What did you...
Oh, I took art history.
So you did like art. Something
I did.
Yeah.
I did like art, and then other forms of education and sociology. I thought I might become a sociologist.
And did you think you would be a teacher, or because you ended up being a teacher? What was your degree in from Berkeley?
Probably sociology.
Yeah, sociology.
Yes.
And so you graduated from Berkeley.
I graduated from Berkeley, and then I went to UCLA and did some graduate work in teaching.
And that was in teaching?
Yes.
And so at that point, you're still quite young, but you thought you would go, okay, I'm going to become a teacher?
Exactly. At that point, I did.
And had you gotten married yet, or you were?
No, I hadn't gotten married yet. It was very interesting because I just kind of backtrack a little. At that point, a woman's choices were being a nurse or being a teacher.
Yeah, that's right. Or a homemaker, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
That was the biggest one. If you didn't find someone to marry, then you probably would be a nurse or a teacher.
Yeah, that's right. And so did you feel those pressures?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Every time I dated, my mother wanted to know if this was someone I might think about marrying. I've been very choosy all my life.
And did she kind of expect you to be married by the time you were 25?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At that time, most women that weren't married, were going to be old maids.
Yeah. So you
I got married at 24, actually.
At 24. And was that after graduate school?
Graduate school I decided to do in 1985.
So, and what was that in?
Then I went to Reed College in Portland, and I was going to get my master's in art history. And what was normally a 2-year master's, after the 5th year, my advisor says you could have gotten a GED. I won't say it on podcast.
You can say it. We can curse on this.
He said you could have gotten a goddamn.
There you go.
Done a dissertation, gotten your doctorate in the amount of time it's taken you to get your master's. So I wrote my master's thesis, which they wanted to publish, but I didn't want to publish.
And so, what was the master's thesis on?
The art of Native American basketry.
And is that still around? Do you still have that paper?
I still have that, yes.
And so the information that you gleaned at that time, and that was in the early 80s?
It was mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s.
Yes.
Is that information you think still applicable, or have things changed, or you have educated yourself since that to go,
I've educated myself, and I got my master's in, after 5 to 6 years, I got it at Reed College in 1990.
But that thesis that you wrote was, do you still think it's applicable, what you found?
Yes, although there is no name for art in any Native American language.
Oh, that's interesting.
So using that, I had to explain art, and then I had to explain why I thought that Native American baskets were good art.
And why did it take so long to finish it? I take it you had a family or some kind of obligations?
Oh, yes, I had 2 children.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just kind of took my time and I wrote, and it turned out pretty well.
Yeah, you had a life.
Yeah.
So you taught school before, just going back a little bit. So after you graduated from college, you went and then you went directly to Reed College at that time, or did you? Or UCLA?
No, I went to Reed College when I was an
so you went to
older
UCLA
person.
after that.
I did. I went right to
And
UCLA.
then after that, you taught.
I did.
And you taught for how many years?
I taught for 3 years, and
What grades was this?
4th, 5th.
Oh, I would have loved to have you as a 4th grade teacher.
They wanted to keep me and
I
make
bet.
me supervising teacher, like to have people under me to get their teaching license. But that's when I got married.
Yeah, right in that time frame. And so when did you get that first basket we talked about that you needed it for the home?
2 years after we were married.
Yeah, so okay. And you were still teaching at that point then?
Yes.
And did that basket that you bought, that you took back, did it make you go, I want to learn all about this?
I did. Once I thought that I was taken for $5, I thought, that ain't ever going to happen to me again.
And it didn't, I'm sure.
It didn't, because after I got my original $5 back, I really started going to auctions. I started asking dealers. And then it was kind of weird because I was told I had very good taste. And dealers would start asking me, they weren't into basket, they'd start asking me what I thought of certain baskets. And I would usually pick up the one that was most expensive, that I was told. And so I went to auctions, and people at the auctions started realizing that I knew what I was doing, and they asked me to buy for them.
Oh, and so you were already buying at that point at the auctions. And what would you do? Would you go to the auctions, buy what you liked?
Yes.
And then who would you sell it to?
At that point, most people who were in the auction, these were married people and people who enjoyed all kinds of art, and they asked if they could have me find things for them, and they would buy from me. So it kind of started very early, but the more I did this, the more I realized I had to continue learning.
And so when you did that, you were doing it mainly in Portland at that time?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
Oh,
you
yes.
had moved back to home
Yes.
with your kids and your husband at that point.
Yes.
And you were buying and selling just basketry.
Oh, just baskets. And I would do it all from my house.
And at what point in time did you go, this is my profession? Do you know? 'Cause
Very soon, because I loved everything I bought.
so as
I
soon as
loved
you
it.
left teaching,
Yes.
did you actually leave going, I am going to become a basket dealer?
No. No, it wasn't till about 5 years after that I knew I was going to be a basket.
And you were during that 5-year transition period, you were kind of collecting.
Oh, yes.
And then also selling? Or more
When
just.
people called me, yes, I
Yeah.
couldn't believe people were calling me
Yeah.
and asked if I would sell the basket XYZ.
And was it all baskets, not just because,
Baskets and bags.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. Did you start the Plateau bags at that time as well?
Oh,
And
yes, I bought my
and the
first
cornhusk
one.
bags?
Oh, yes. They decorate to today 2 walls in my home.
And what was it about those that really intrigued you?
It was the only 2-sided art form with 2 different sides that they were made. The Native American ladies made them, and it would be like they kept turning their canvas over. It was made with cornhusk, and it would be like Picasso painting 2 different canvases at the same time, like on a revolving chair.
And tell people what a Plateau bag is, a cornhusk bag
Yes,
especially, so
it
they
is from
understand.
Oregon, Washington, Idaho, were the 3 main states. And these were bags that were carried as purses and carried as root bags. And many times they were made when someone was going to get married, and they would present her with her mother or grandmother or something would present her with this piece. And oftentimes it was filled with wonderful things that were used later in their marriage. And
the basket itself would have been utilitarian and
the basket was utilitarian. But
roots of different types.
That's correct. Roots that they ate in those areas. But then they saw that the white people were carrying purses, and so the Native American master weavers started weaving these cornhusk bags for the white women, don't like to use that term, came into the Plateau area from places like New York, and they would buy something from the weavers who were oftentimes on the street selling their wares.
And this would have been turn of the century, 1910 kind of thing?
Oh, yes. 1890, 1900 to 1920s at most.
And they would be made out of cornhusk, but they would be decorated with things like Germantown yarns, 3-ply commercial yarns.
You got it.
Yeah.
And also dyed cornhusk.
Yes.
They'd use
Are those the
berries
earlier
and
ones
stuff.
when you see them dyed with that?
No, because at first they would use things like moss that gave off kind of a green color, and they used the hemp, and you could always tell an old bag buy if this hemp and moss-colored green.
And would those bring more money?
Oh,
than the
yes.
other ones? Yeah.
Yes, they started bringing more because it was harder to work with the hemp.
Yeah. Even today, would they bring more money?
Today they bring, more money.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, the thing I like about them, and I've always been intrigued, is the abstract art that they have, design-wise, both sides. Again, it's really
Unbelievable.
It's modernist art.
It is. And usually, Mark, there was a primary and a secondary side. And the secondary side was usually kept along the woman's body. But the primary side was very extravagant. And
you could tell that by the primary side the colors would fade a little bit and more damage because it's getting used.
Correct.
Yeah.
And also it was the artistry of the maker was shown on the primary side.
That's the side she liked.
Oh, yes.
And did men ever make these? Or was it always women?
There were a few making it when I started collecting many, many years ago, but that was unusual.
Yeah. So they still, even when you started collecting, there was...
Not as much because it takes too long to make.
Yeah. and they didn't get paid enough for the time.
You got it.
Yeah. And so you started collecting Plateau bags, and then you also, how about beaded bags? That would have
Yes, because the Plateau people made the beaded bags.
Right. Tell people about those. I find those to be very interesting.
Oh, they're wonderful. And usually there's only a primary side, and the back just has just old material or something. But usually they did figural stuff, again, for the white women who wore them as purses, or for their own use, maybe at rodeos or ceremonies or something like that.
So those are generally later than the cornhusk bags?
A little bit later, although there are many very old ones that have the very old beads that are mid-19th century.
I just got one in I bought the other day that's of Eisenhower.
Oh, my goodness.
On the front of it, yeah.
Wow.
I know, it's really crazy looking.
Now that's interesting, because that right there would date it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I'm assuming it was when he was president. It looked like it. It was a very good rendition.
Oh, it would have to be when he was president.
So the 50s, I assume. So you go along, you're buying and selling, and at some point you start to do academician type research. Tell us maybe more about that.
Well, first of all, I was asked by universities and museums all around the country to come give lectures, to give seminars and minor courses. When I say minor, I don't mean as far as the information that was relayed, but in time, that might be 3 days at the most, I would give a course.
And what would that be? What would it be on identification primarily, or?
No, it would be actually on taking like a basket and applying artistic terms to that basket or bag. And I taught a course at Portland State University in the art history department, and using only artistic terms of today to talk about Native American art.
Was there pushback by other teachers or students when you used those kind of terms?
No, they liked it because they could identify with those terms and knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, because that would have been a little revolutionary at some point.
Oh gosh, yes.
And maybe not so now, because we think of these in terms of art, and of course we always have. We've
That's
always
right.
felt that way.
And the natives didn't have any word, as I said, for art.
Yeah.
So it was really quite revolutionary.
And did you also start doing writing papers? You've written lots of papers. Tell us some of the things that you've written, and maybe people could find.
I've written on tribes that made baskets, and then magazines started. The American Indian Art Magazine, and then Native American Magazine, and Architectural Digest asked me to write something that was for home decoration.
Yeah, what was that? Tell us about that. When was that?
Oh, that was a long time ago. It was maybe 25, 30 years ago.
And it was kind of how you can use basketry in your home?
That's right.
Did you bring up that little basket that you bought and said
Never.
that you started your home with that? And what were the baskets you felt were best for decoration in just a pure decorative form?
Well, I hate to use the word expensive, but it turns out that many of the baskets that were made to appeal to the white senses were expensive baskets, and the natives used more design that they thought that the white people would love.
Yeah, pictorial type things.
You got it.
Yeah,
you got
in
it.
very tight weaves.
Right.
So you have probably handled almost every kind of basket, I would think.
I have.
Native American basket.
I have.
Do you have a favorite or favorites that you enjoy either to own or to buy and sell?
Well, there's some that I kid with my children that when it's my time to leave the earth, to bury me with them, they said, "No, Mother, we'll probably sell them."
Yeah.
But no, they will keep them. They love.
And what are the tribal?
There was one is kind of the southern part of the Yoket group in California. It was a Tabatalabo, and it was my first expensive basket.
Yeah, they're beautiful. I have
They're wonderful.
one example I have.
You know, when I walk by that basket today, I still run my hand along it because it is so wonderful.
Super fine, and it's probably a polychrome and
Oh,
all that
yes,
stuff, yeah.
and it's an old basket.
1885 kind
You
of
got
thing.
it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, those are some of the most great baskets.
Oh, they were wonderful.
Let's talk a little bit, because we have you and you're such an expert in the field, about somebody like Dat So La Lee, the great Washoe
Oh, sure.
basket maker. When did you learn about her work?
I learned about her work very quickly. I read an old Arizona Highways article on her, and I thought, oh, I would give my child for a basket like that. I'm just teasing, of course, but...
He's not.
Thanks, Mark. Anyway, the work went for so much money. I just never could have afforded to buy something like that.
Have you ever had a Dat So La Lee basket?
No, I helped in the sale of one, but I have never owned one because it would have taken too much money, and I was helping my kids through college. And
Yeah, and they're rare baskets, and a lot of them
they're rare
are
baskets.
Yeah, right?
But there are some unbelievable master weavers who come very close to Dat So La Lee.
And who would you put in that group?
People from the Yosemite National Park area.
Yes.
Lucy Tellis, dynamite. I have a couple of pieces that are as finely woven as any Dat So La Lee.
And maybe actually even rarer to some extent. Those Yosemite baskets are extremely rare.
Oh, yes.
I've never
yes.
had one, so.
Oh, yes, they are. And people want those. I mean, they were highly touted and advertised. And I've had people say, can you find me a reasonable one? That was hard to do.
Yeah, impossible, really.
Yeah.
Just finding one is hard because they're not out there. And so maybe you could give some ideas of what basket prices can actually go for, like a Dat So La Lee. I mean, I've heard, $1 million for those.
Yes, I've heard that too, Mark. At one time, I was offered one by a Lee Cohn in Arizona. He has been long gone.
Gallery 10.
Yes, and he called me and said, Natalie, I think I found something you might like. And it was a Dat So La Lee, and he said that he owed me some favors. And he offered me this magnificent piece, but it was $300-some thousand.
Yeah.
And my home was worth maybe $200,000, so $300,000 was more than my home.
And so what did you do?
I had to say no.
Yeah.
And that,
if you could go back, would you?
I would have bought it.
In a heartbeat.
I would have cleaned houses, everything to that.
And why, and knowing that knowledge, what is it that we would go, I would buy it now? Why is that?
Because then I could say I've owned every great master.
I got it. Yeah, because you've never got to have Dat So La Lee.
No, I've held them, I've helped sell them, but...
And there's a great collection of those in the Carson City Historical Museum.
Oh my gosh, but they don't have them displayed prominently, which I wish they would.
Yeah, it's the greatest collection. So
collection.
If you're ever in Carson City, it's worth the trip. I know I've made it just for that. These baskets are so fine, and the shapes are so beautiful. They're very tight.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yes.
And what other basket makers that you think would be great basket makers?
Well, Dat So La Lee was a washer weaver, and
Correct.
some washers were just wonderful. Lily James and...
Dick, maybe.
What's that?
Dick.
Lina Dick?
Yeah, Lina Dick.
Lina Dick. I have a Lily James, which is quite nice, a washer. And, I mean, there's some beautiful baskets that never commanded the price of a Dat So La Lee, but... well, of course, they weren't quite as decorative as a Dat So La Lee.
And what do you look for in a basket?
I do look for weave. Without weave, you cannot weave wonderful designs, because if your weave is uneven, your design is going to be ultimately uneven.
So just the preparation of the yarn, not the yarn, but of the
materials.
The materials needs to be at the upper end of what can be done.
Absolutely. And if it isn't, you cannot sell it.
So you look at great weave, and
weave.
And then design.
Design, of course, and then form.
Yeah. And so ideally, I know it varies between tribals because certain forms are more classic for that tribe.
Right.
But what forms do you like in an old basket? What are the forms that really stick out to you?
They have to be globular, or as in the case of a Dat So La Lee or Washoe group, which were called digicoops.
Yeah.
They have a high shoulder, and then it kind of tapers down to a smaller base. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you look at the aperture where the woman has finished off the basket. Does it look like a round circle? If it doesn't, it's not good as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so you look at not only the start, but the finish.
The finish.
Yeah.
The finish is everything because that completes this masterpiece.
And then to me, something I always look at is symmetry of design.
Absolutely.
You know? Not only the basket itself, but the design. Is it asymmetrical? Did they get it right? Does it just work? Is it pleasant? Does it make
Absolutely.
you go, ooh, look at that? And then condition, of course.
But then I have to touch it.
Yeah.
I do. It just.
And what is that you feel that you need that extra sense?
Oh, I just do. Because I can feel then the lay of the stitch. Does it meet the sister next to it? Because if you feel nubbiness in the stitches, it is not well woven.
And also, it's probably a very good way to find for restoration because you can feel a difference in the type of
Oh, are
stitch.
you right, Mark?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And then coloration, too. And if you have the right lighting, you can see if anything has been restored. And not only great pieces, but...
And what's your feeling on that if it's a basket
Restored?
has... Yeah, what's your feeling on that?
I don't feel that baskets that are just missing a few stitches should be repaired.
Yeah, just leave them as is.
Leave it as is, because as long as 9/10 of the basket is there, why play with the other 10th and then have people say, oh my gosh, I wish that the restorer could have done as well as the weaver.
Yeah.
And it never works the same.
No. Well, and I think one of the things that people forget to do, and they should, and I do, is use all your senses, right? So you're talking
Exactly.
about touch. You can also use smell. You can smell a basket and see if it's got an oily smell. Sometimes people oil these things to bring out, I don't know why, they bring out the color, but it kind of destroys the basket.
Oh,
in my
does it
opinion.
ever? Mark, there used to be a man who, he's been gone for a long time, but he was proud of himself because he used to shellac his baskets because he loved the shine. Well, little by little, what the shellac will do, it eats into the basketry materials, and all of a sudden they can start coming off the basket.
They just start flying
it's
apart.
bad.
And is there anything they can do when these people have oiled baskets?
Oiled, I think the oiling gets into the fiber.
Yeah.
Shellac, you can probably have it taken off
Yeah.
if it hasn't ruined the basket.
And then the other thing, so you use obviously sight, you look at it, you smell, you touch.
Absolutely.
And I have done on occasion certain things taste too. 'Cause,
Interesting.
Yeah, there's certain things that you can taste, certain things like rocks that you want to know if it's a jade versus another type of stone. It has a cold feel to it. There are things
Fantastic.
that, yeah. So, and if you use all your senses, don't forget the other ones, just like you do with touch. It's not just visual, there's other things. Because when,
yes.
you know, when you look at this art form, any art form, you have to, in my opinion, take it all in as a whole picture.
You got it.
And examine it, look at it closely, look at it from a distance. You'll learn things from doing that.
And one more thing, Mark. Turn the basket around. Because every basket has a good side and a bad side. Or when I say bad, I mean that in a very
But it gets exposed
Loose way.
differently. Light affects it.
but also lighting. Yes, that can be. But also sometimes I remember seeing. I don't know if it was a Dat So La Lee. I don't think so. But another great washer weaver, and I turned it around. All of a sudden, I turned it to one area, and the basket had a little list to it.
Yeah.
That lean sometimes can kill it, but every basket has a good side and not so good a side.
Yeah, like people.
You got it.
Turn them around and look.
Unless we're perfect, Mark.
Yeah, well, we know that's not the case. For sure.
Yeah. Oh,
And so tell me a bit about what you think the market is today. How's it changed for Native American basketry, or just, that's your specialty, so we'll talk about that in Plateau bags.
Mark, I think that the market kind of echoes the whole art market. Everything, once 2008 came and left, there has been a change in the pricing of some of your master painters and also your master weavers.
And furniture, American decorative, all the things.
Absolutely. It has changed. But the good weavers, as in basketry, the stuff commands a very nice price. It might not be quite as high as Certain dealers might have presented it prior to 2008.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say this is true, that if it's a great piece, the top of the top, it's still going to be maybe break a record?
It will break a record. As far as baskets, it will break a record. And people come to my house, and when they hear what I have paid for baskets, actually I've had to pay them off.
Yeah.
And they cannot believe, they'll say, oh, I wanted a basket so badly, but now I can't afford it. And I said, well, there are other baskets too.
Yeah, there's
And
lots of baskets.
Lots of baskets, and some that people can well afford.
Yeah, and I think in some respects, because of the recalibration of the art market in general, except for maybe contemporary art, which has gone the other direction, there is opportunities to buy really great objects at prices that we haven't seen in a long time.
That's correct. That's correct.
And they're not making them anymore, really. I mean, do you know of any tribes other than
No.
the Tohono O'odham that are, and maybe, I guess, some of the Mission Indians and a few maybe Pomo, but not a lot, right?
Not a lot at all, Mark. And it's sad because, needless to say, I once talked to a woman, a wonderful weaver. And this was many years ago, and I said, I can't remember her name, but I said, let's say it was Mary. I said, Mary, how much does an hour of work cost? She said, Natalie, if I had to charge by the hour, she said, we calibrated it out that it would be like 15 cents an hour.
Yeah.
No one's going to work, Mark, for 15 cents
Yeah,
an
no,
hour.
they won't. They
Of course,
don't.
it's more today, but then the coin has changed too.
And do you think there's a way that can be broached where they don't get paid that? That would, that's the question. Maybe if it's in a more modern sensibility for today's aesthetics, maybe there is a way they can be paid appropriately as an artist.
That's correct. And I think there's some galleries that can explain how long it took these women to weave. I mean,
Right.
And you're not only talking about the weaving of the basket, you're talking about the preparation of the materials, the dyeing of certain
Yeah,
materials.
talk to us about that. If you're going to make say, an Apache basket, what's involved in that?
Oh my goodness. First of all, you have to collect your materials, and you can only collect certain materials like bracken fir or devil's claw and willow certain times of the year. And the woman prepares her own materials. It takes a long time. You just didn't start weaving once you picked it from the ground.
Right,
Didn't
and
work
things
that
like
way.
devil's claw, which are hard to work
Oh
with,
my
they're
gosh.
tough, they're sharp.
Look at what a devil's claw looks like. I mean, it's as hard to do as what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And that's the black for those who don't know what that is.
Yes.
And then the white in the Apaches would be the willow, and then they would put
Correct.
them on willow rods. And that's one of the ways you could tell a willow or Apache piece from a Pima is the different types of foundation.
That's correct.
that
And
they
the
have.
finish.
And the finish.
And
That's right.
the sturdiness of the basket. I mean, the willow had a bunch. They used a bundle rather than just three
Yeah.
sticks.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's the difference.
And you could even tell Mescalero from Hickorea versus
That's
Western
correct.
Apache by
Right.
the number of rods that were used in the.
Absolutely.
Now, I know this is fairly granular for people, but I think it's important to understand when you're talking about basketry, if you really want to understand the tribal affiliation, you do have to understand the materials because that really tells us where things are from.
Exactly.
And some of the things like Panamint versus Tulabalabal, maybe you could just even talk about some of the different things that you use as markers for.
Yes, that's very good because every area in the country has its own plant materials, which would be indigenous, is the word to that area. And in the Southwest, it would be, of course, willow would be your main. And as you come up into California, we're talking about other materials, sedge and all kinds of things.
Black and fern.
Bracken fern, yes. And redbud. And
Versus red yucca.
that's exactly right. And then you keep going north into the northwest area, and we're talking about the cedar tree and all things made of cedar. So it's
And the types of things they would use would be different too, like imbrication up in the Thompson River versus you won't see that down in the Southwest. And
Exactly. And that the material comes first, and what they did with that material, of course, the form is the prime example of who made what.
Yes, and I see, one of the things I see over and over and over and over and over again are these Southwest-style baskets that come from Pakistan.
Oh, well.
You must be offered those on a daily basis?
Oh, I would say at one time it was at least a daily basis. Now I don't see them quite as much because I don't deal in a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
And so they're not brought to me.
They're not finding it. Yeah, they're all finding me.
Are they really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and these are, $5 baskets that have a figure that looks like an Indian figure or a dog that's clearly wrong.
Oh, yes.
Evelyn dyed, stitches, the wrong composition. Everything's wrong about the basket
Absolutely.
other than they've used some of the iconography from usually Apache or Pima baskets. And again, I think that brings back to the people who are wanting to collect this is educate yourself. Price structure, you're not going to find a $5 basket in a retail space.
And if you do, it's not an Indian basket.
Do like Natalie did and return it
when
it was her first
absolutely.
basket. But make sure that it actually is a Native American basket versus something that is made to look like a Native American basket. And there's also Panamint baskets that are...
That's from the General Death Valley area.
Yeah.
General Death Valley.
Yeah, which are beautiful baskets.
Magnificent.
But not to be confused with those from Panama.
That's correct.
Which also have those actually are some fantastic baskets.
There's a lot of fantastic basket makers.
And these are contemporary weavers that are making in Panama, and you'll see those. But again, you need to make sure, because often they'll use designs from the Southwest, and even some of the styles will be that way.
You are so right on. No, and then they know that if they can pass one off, they can get a lot more than $50 for it.
Yeah, that's right. So education is such an important
and
aspect.
Ask people. I mean, I'm getting every week, I must get sometimes 20 people asking for an appraisal on things, and oftentimes those baskets are not Indian.
Yeah.
And I try to train the person on the phone because they're not with me, so I have to look at a picture.
And you'll do appraisals for people?
Absolutely.
So that's a very good resource for people that have basket collections that they want to sell. She's going to be the person to go to, the go-to person. I don't do appraisals. I figured out a long time ago I'd be overwhelmed. And congratulations
it's very
for you
overwhelming.
doing it. It is. It's a lot of work, and I just don't have the time. We'll give estimates of values, but not appraisals. So,
yes, and I have to do that too because some of these can be hundreds of items.
Yeah.
And I can't take that time to write out for insurance purposes.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot. Oh, you have no idea.
Oh,
yes, you do.
Yeah,
yes, you do.
So tell me, where do you see our business headed? I mean,
It's different.
Yeah, it's different, right?
It is different.
And where do you see it going? Do you see the younger people potentially being involved, or different countries being involved?
Well, I wish that people that are basket people, or rugs or weavings or pottery, I wish they'd start talking to their children about what the things are, what they were worth, what they paid for, and what they're worth now, and the reputable people in those particular fields. What I am saying is that I have people coming to me in their 50s and their parents were basket collectors. And oftentimes if the person has passed away, they come to me and they say, I love these, and my mother loved them, my father went crazy over them. By the way, men were even more prevalent in the basket world than many times women.
As collectors, you mean?
As collectors.
Interesting.
Oh, yes. And so I said, I would tell them, talk to your parents or talk to someone that knows they can help you. I've given a lot of lectures on people's baskets. They will bring them to me and I will go through and I will give lectures for families, and they will sit and they will learn about the things that their parents collect.
Yeah, these are handmade objects that took
Yes.
very long skill set to be able to do it, plus time frame to do it.
Absolutely.
And, there's only a limited amount of these objects out there. They do get destroyed, fire, bugs,
Oh
all
my
sorts of
gosh,
things
yes.
can happen. But it's important, I think, if you do inherit these things, to realize that it's a kind of a dead art form to some extent, at least in the Southwest.
It is. It takes too much time, Mark.
And they don't get paid.
That's correct.
For the most part. There's a few Navajo weavers that are doing great jobs. There's a few patches, a few totems. We applaud those. We hope they continue to do it because we don't want the art form to die. But it is
Absolutely.
It is, going away rather quickly.
I asked a couple people. I've given many lectures to Indian, Native Americans, on reservations and things like that. And afterward, these women would come up to me. They would say, "Natalie, how did they make those?" And I said, "My goodness, I could tell you how to make them, but my hands won't go that way."
Yeah.
And I said, "Ask the older people in your tribe."
Oh.
And so, I'm trying to, and a lot of Native American tribes now are preserving these in their museums.
That's right, they are.
And a lot of these natives, they have casinos, and I've been asked to do appraisals for the casinos that have their own tribal basketry.
Yeah, they're coming back and buying from
Yes.
the open market pieces that were made by
yes.
their forefathers.
That's exactly
And
right.
they understand the importance of them.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
They do. I've been into a number of casinos. Well, I enjoy gambling occasionally, and I've seen some of these display cases.
Isn't that thrilling, actually? Thrilling to come in and see something
I
like
love
that?
it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Many of them. I've been all over the country, and I've seen things that I have praised.
Yeah.
And how beautifully they are displayed since they knew the value of them.
Yeah, and it's their
I love
heritage
that.
too,
Oh,
which is
gosh,
wonderful.
yes.
Yeah, I wish more tribal could afford to do it. I think the casino money has helped that in some aspects.
Yes.
And it would be a great thing, and there's more that should do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I know as a dealer, I know I or you would feel honored to be able to get it back to the tribe if they wanted to buy something like that and put it in a display. Because again, a lot of the basketry, I would think that is, the most valuable basketry was actually made for the trade. These were basket weavers that made
That's
it to
right.
sell, to make
right.
money, not
Right.
things that they were buying to use as in the daily life. It may have started out that way, but quickly when they realized that they could make a basket that used to hold corn, if they put some figures or do things differently, they could actually get more money for it.
Exactly. Exactly. And figural pieces, in many cases, were almost done for the white trade.
Yeah.
Because the whites realized...
The tourist trade, whatever
You got
that
it.
might have been.
The tourist.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Now, let's switch gears just for a second. I want to talk to you about what you're doing in the theater and potentially
Oh, gosh.
comedy. Yeah,
Oh,
we're going to go
Mark.
there. Yeah, we're going there. Sorry. What are you doing as an actor?
I have always, on my bucket list, I started taking drama lessons. And I would make people laugh, and they would say, "Natalie, you really should think about comedy." So I've been taking comedic theater, and I have a private coach. And she thinks I should do some stand-up.
Yeah, you should.
5 or 10 minute stints in a nightclub and things like that.
And have you worked on specific kind of
Oh
riffs
my
that
gosh.
you like?
Well, I've written a lot. In fact, a few people thought I should have my book published on dating.
Oh, yeah, let's hear some of that. Yeah, tell
Oh
me.
my goodness, Mark. Can I whisper to you?
No, not if you want to do comedy.
I have to tell you, I have been dating for 27 years. And when a man got too close and asked to get married or live in or something, I thought, oh, this man's not for me.
Yeah.
I finally found a very nice man. And it feels the same way I do. Why get married?
Yeah.
But I've had so many experiences, men
Really, Natalie?
of all races, of all colors, of all religions. Yes.
I knew we would get something interesting out of that.
Oh God, let me tell you, it has been crazy.
Well, it's an interesting thing to date, I think, especially as you get older in the world.
Yes.
As a woman. It's a little different ball of wax, I would imagine. I've been married a long time, so I don't know. But
You're a kid.
I'm a kid, yeah. No, I am a kid in this business to some extent. I haven't turned 60 yet, so I can. That's a
Braggart.
Yeah, I'm going to as long as I can. It won't be much longer. So, what's the next step for you? Anything that you want to share with the people that are listening to this podcast? Because you've got so much to say.
You know, I have loved everything that I have done.
Clearly.
I have loved being a mother. I have loved collecting. Now I love theater. I love movies. And I would say whatever one loves to do, kind of stick to it and see where it takes you. I don't know where the acting is going to take me. Probably nowhere. I'm too old, but I don't know. If I can make someone laugh, I love it. And I have made a lot of people laugh at dinner parties and stuff like that. I keep them going for a long time.
And smile, too.
Oh, you have to smile.
And you've made a lot of people smile when you tell them about the baskets. And,
yes.
And I think that's a joy that you give to people is your knowledge you share with them. You have a great eye. I agree with that. And I'm glad you're part of our community.
Oh, Mark, that is so sweet.
Yeah, it's
that
true.
That is very sweet. Thank
Natalie
you.
Linn, if you get to Portland, come see her. If you have a basket, you can find her on the internet, I have no doubt. And she's a wonderful human being, and she's at most of the great shows that deal in Native American baskets. You'll find her with the best booth on baskets.
Mark, you're a joy, and I love you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Natalie Linn. Thank you. Our Dealer Diaries.
Thank you.
Brought to you by Medicine Man Gallery, located for over 26 years in Tucson, Arizona, specializing in antique Native American art, early Western art, including the famed Maynard Dixon, as well as modern art. You can find everything online at medicinemangallery.com. There's over 6,000 objects to select from. Also, the Charles Bloom Murder Mystery Series, written by yours truly, me, Mark Sublette. There's 6 books in this series, and they follow the protagonist Charles Bloom through all the intrigue of the art world set in Santa Fe and the Navajo Nation. These can be found on Audible, ebooks, Amazon, and of course, the gallery at medicinemangallery.com.